Yeah, so the last time we made a New York Islanders trade proposal type video, it pissed a lot of Islanders fans off, and I said it would because I knew that the player that we were talking about in that video, Noah Dobson, is somebody very near and dear to many Isles fans' hearts. He is very near and dear to my heart because I'm a very big fan of him, even though I'm not an Islanders fan. But that video went over and it was pretty poorly received. Hopefully this one is not as poorly received, but we might still have ourselves a few conversations going around there when it comes to Western Canadian teams and the team on Long Island. The reason we're talking about the Islanders here today is because we're linking the Islanders to a player in Edmonton who's been somewhat of a meme himself, but in the best way possible, Jesse Puljujarvi of the Oilers. The reason we're talking about Jesse Puljujarvi here is because of this article published by Stefan Rosner on NewYorkIslandersHockeyNow.com. This was from about a week ago, so about a week ago, should the Oilers' Puljujarvi be on the New York Islanders' radar? A link will be in the description if you want to go ahead and read this article in full, but what we're going to be taking a look at is a few snippets, a few sentences here and there that pitch together a narrative that kind of gets across the point that is being made here by Rosner. The article opens up by talking about how the Islanders have not really added any forwards this offseason, and it's not really all too great, the fact that they did that, because they weren't really all too great offensively last season either. With the brand names off the board, and quite frankly, too expensive, Edmonton Oilers forward 24-year-old Jesse Puljujarvi is a player that should be, according to this article, on the Islanders' radar. Now, there is an entire report going over him, but let's just do ourselves our own favors and be self-sufficient and do that ourselves. Puljujarvi is 24 years old, 6'4", 201 as a right-handed forward, signed till the end of 2023 on a $3 million AAV contract. We had seen a lot of trade rumors about Puljujarvi the past few weeks, months, heck, even years, discussing other teams, whether or not the Oilers would, could, or should actually trade him, and even as recently as a few weeks ago, we had a report that came out that said that the Oilers were disappointed in the lack of interest that Puljujarvi had amongst the other teams in the league. Puljujarvi made his debut with the Oilers in 2016-17, where he wasn't really all too great, and he kind of kept that not all too great status for a few years. This recent season, he had 36 points in 65 games played, and 3 points in 16 games in the postseason. Not a great postseason run, but a regular season that was good enough that a lot of people, myself included, were looking at his advanced analytics and saying, hey, McDavid, Nugent-Hopkins, Draisaitl, every one of these players on the Oilers plays a lot better, and they have a lot better offensive numbers when they play with Puljujarvi versus when they don't play with Puljujarvi. This is one of the most interesting advanced analytical darlings in the NHL today, because even though he has such good results, he only produced 36 points in the 65-game sample that he had. Now, sure, there were a lot of ups and downs leading up to this point. Puljujarvi leaving the team, going to Finland, expressing his desire to get traded to another team. It was all a big showcase of drama the past few years. But at the end of the day, Puljujarvi is signed on for one more season here, and this article on Islanders Hockey Now goes over what it could look like should the Islanders make a pitch for this player. Since 2019, per an article by Sportsnet, Puljujarvi has wanted out of Edmonton, and it sounds like Edmonton is ready to move on. Per Elliot Friedman, on the July 11th edition of the 32 Thoughts podcast, the sentiment was shared that the Oilers want to move Puljujarvi for a pick. It's hard right now, yada yada yada. I mean, they re-signed him now, so it's a little different today than where things were July 11th, but nevertheless, the whole point of the Oilers moving Puljujarvi is to make cap space. By the way, that should say Puljujarvi, not Puljujarvi. Yeah, probably want to spell check that a little bit here and there, Hockey Now articles. It gets even worse because they say the same thing in the next paragraph. Oh my gosh, in 259 career games, Puljujarvi has 45 goals. Yeah, okay, we're going to skip that. Oh boy. Anyways, this article is talking about how Puljujarvi is indeed a good hockey player. It shows off the JFresh player card for Puljujarvi and his very nice 69% wins above replacement number. He goes to the crease, gets the puck in deep, he defends and works hard in the forecheck. He makes use of his size, he just doesn't bang and snarl with it, nor should he have to given how he wields the tool, said Sportsnet's Justin Bourne in an article on Puljujarvi from July 6. He drives play extremely well, with all those things I mentioned, pushing the puck to the right half of the rink with consistency. But he is wildly frustrating because he's not an offensively poised guy who's had success finishing or setting up goals, even when he plays with great players. The Islanders need someone who is going to finish chances. This next part of the piece goes over a trade proposal. What would it take to acquire Puljujarvi from the Islanders? Despite his play in the second half of the season, Kieffer Bellows still does not seem to have a future with New York. Yes, he was given a qualifying offer as he should have been, but the 24-year-old forward still has a lot to prove to earn an everyday job. The Islanders could send Kieffer Bellows and a third-round pick to Edmonton, which should be enough to acquire Puljujarvi and his then RFA rights. He currently has a contract now, so it's a little bit different. Then it's about Lamoriello trying to make the contract fit under the salary cap. The Islanders, at the time of the article's publishing, had north of $11 million, but okay, they're saying that it could roughly be a $3-4-ish million contract, which would make sense for Puljujarvi. Hey, he did sign for $3 million, so there you go, whoop-de-doo. But the trade proposal goes as follows. Kieffer Bellows and a third-round pick for Puljujarvi. And I wanted to go out there and say this on the record right here, that Kieffer Bellows, the player in the Islander system, is somebody that I like a lot. I always have. He was also a 2016 first-round pick. He was taken 19th overall by the Islanders. Puljujarvi was taken, 15 picks earlier at the 4th overall spot. So these guys are both 24 years old. And like Puljujarvi, Kieffer Bellows has not necessarily developed in the way that a lot of Islanders fans wanted him to ever since being acquired by that team in 2016. This is because back in 2016, he was a fantastic player for the NTDP. He eventually made the NCAA with Boston University, had 14 points in 34 games played, but then decommitted from the NCAA in order to play Major Junior in Canada. Now, a lot of people would be very surprised about this type of development. Hey, a guy who's playing NCAA hockey, he doesn't have a bad year, and then he leaves altogether to go to the WHL? Is the WHL not an inferior league to the NCAA in terms of its on-ice talent? You could definitely make that debate. Eventually, though, Bellows was a good player in the Portland Winterhawks system. He made the Bridgeport Sound Tigers in the next year and spent the next few seasons bouncing up and down between the AHL and the NHL. This recent season, though, he had 19 points in 45 games played. Definitely not the most effective player when it comes to producing in the way that a lot of people thought he would, based off of how he played with the NTDP. But he still is 24 years old, and he still is a serviceable enough middle six offensive caliber guy that could be somewhat of a valuable piece if you're looking for a pretty skilled, pretty flashy player that doesn't show those flashes off too much, but when he does show them off, he shows them off pretty well. There was this clip of Kieffer Bellows in the Beauty League where he scored a breakaway goal and he just very effortlessly did a very nice little backhand fake over onto the forehand. The announcer, by the way, very funny in this clip because the guy is just so unenthusiastic and he calls Kieffer Bellows actually Chief Keef. The guy steals the puck, he goes on a breakaway. Oh, it's a breakaway. Chief Keef, Kieffer Bellows, he scores. Like, it's so unenthusiastic, man. I love the Beauty League, isn't it great? But if I were to go out there and try to label the trade price for a guy like Jesse Puljujarvi and try to say, okay, Kieffer Bellows and a third for Puljujarvi, I could understand the value there. Like, I could understand why the writer of this piece is saying that that would be equal value and good enough for both sides. But if the Oilers are trading away Puljujarvi, you know they're going to want a little bit more. Not necessarily because Puljujarvi is worth what he is worth, but because Puljujarvi is Puljujarvi. He is such a prominent player when it comes to the memes, when it comes to the way scouts and NHL fans and media view this guy. He is seen as this analytical darling for a reason, and there's a little bit of extra oomph that that kind of label has for a player. And it's why we had that article come out, or not article, but that radio hit, saying that the Oilers were disappointed about the lack of interest in Puljujarvi on the trade market. For Kieffer Bellows, I could understand that his future may not be all too solidified with the Islanders, and a third-round pick is a third-round pick, but at the end of the day, I think this article is mostly just an Islanders fan going out there saying, hey, I want to get Puljujarvi. Here's a guy that the Islanders don't want anymore, and a third-round pick. Let's get it done. If you disagree, hey, feel free to disagree. Go in the comments and tell me why I'm wrong, why this actually does work, and why this is an amazing trade proposal. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about Puljujarvi? What do you think about Kieffer Bellows? What do you think about this entire trade idea over here? If this is something you would want to explore if you're an Islanders or an Oilers fan. If you're an Oilers fan and it's actually something you would want to do, hey, Puljujarvi, trade him away, whatever. Is this return something you would like? Kieffer Bellows in a third, or would you actually be looking for a little bit more? Kieffer Bellows was not that bad in this NHL season previously, so I definitely do think he has some value, but just how much value is there really? Talk in the comments your thoughts about this trade idea and proposal. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 99, and bye.